Hi, April. It's Natasha. Uh-oh.
Oh, I was muted. Sorry. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no. Thank you for being with us. We really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm very much looking forward to it. This is actually the first time I've strategically taught the public about biodynamics. I've
Oh,
only ever taught our team,
hmm.
really, so they could answer questions well for our guests. So I'm really excited, and I'm excited to hear people's thoughts on it and answer their questions and
Yeah.
hear their questions too. I'm curious because you have a mix of people who are new
Yeah.
in the industry, people that are really established, and yeah,
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. So that actually, I think it's great because it makes for great conversation. Um, we have a very inquisitive crowd, so they'll be engaged, whether verbally or they also like to throw questions in the chat box too.
Right.
But the study halls are very informal. They know that it's education focused, information focused. So yeah, they'll be ready to ask questions for anything that they'd like for you to kind of,
Great.
yeah. So it'll be good.
That sounds great. Sorry, I'm looking at my hair in the camera. I'm like
You're
trying to
fine.
make it look good.
And I went ahead and gave you co-host capabilities so that way if you need to make any adjustments to anything, you have full access.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm going to screen share. I have a PowerPoint presentation just so there's some visuals for people to look at while we're chatting.
Okay.
And so that'll be perfect. Um, I often have trouble keeping an eye on the chat box while
Okay.
I'm discussing. So I'll let people know about that too.
Okay.
That I'm not ignoring anyone on purpose. But will, I actually don't even mind too if people just interrupt me
Yeah.
and
Okay. Well, yeah.
go down rabbit holes that way. Um, Sometimes that's just the best way to have really organic conversations that resonate with people. So I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Okay, good.
What time is it where you are?
It is almost 5 o'clock here.
Okay, so that's not bad at all.
Yeah, so 3 hour time difference. Are you on the East Coast?
I am. I'm in Atlanta.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. So you guys
What's
have
your
been
weather
getting
like
a
right
lot of,
now?
well, you said the weather?
Yeah,
Yeah, so it is pretty nice and dry right now. It's a little chilly for Southern standards,
sure.
so but we're supposed to have some wet weather moving in this weekend.
Great. Well, I miss the dry. I definitely want the dry.
Mhm.
I've only been in Oregon for about 5 years, but it is so damp all the time.
Really?
Yeah, it's I grew up in Arizona, so I like the warmth and the sun,
Yeah.
and it's very different.
Yeah, I grew up on the coast. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. So the winters are hard for me because, sometimes we might have 85-degree weather on Christmas Day in Charleston. So
Hmm.
Atlanta's very different. When it gets down to the 30s and 40s, it's slow moving for me.
Oh, I hear you. I used to live in South Korea.
Uh-huh.
It's a whole nother story, but they're around the same latitude lines as New York. So it was the first time I ever saw, snow stick to the ground and
Yeah.
there was ice. I didn't know how to walk on ice. I remember being late to work that the first time it snowed because I didn't know, I didn't have my snow feet essentially. I didn't
Yeah.
know how to move.
Yeah. Yeah. And also too, like factoring in that extra time that you need to get through
Right.
the winter.
Yeah. Or even just clean off the car. You need to lots of learning involved.
Yeah. I don't think I could make it as a in a area of the country where it snows a lot. I don't think
Ooh,
I have it in me.
I don't either. Like Michigan? Oh,
Yeah.
never.
Yeah. I went on vacation in Quebec one year. Had a great time. It was tons of snow. But luckily, we were prepared with the right clothing and gear and all that stuff. But I would not be able to do that for months and months at a time.
Oh my gosh. No. And I don't know, what do you do with your time if you're not, if you don't enjoy winter sports?
Right.
What do you do? It really limits
Yeah, because
your
there's no
activities.
gardening, there's no walking
No.
outside, there's no
Mm,
biking. Like, yeah, what do they do? Just
exactly. You're not going for picnics on the weekend. So,
no.
what brought you to Atlanta?
So actually, when I got engaged, my fiance was living here,
Mhm.
and I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina at the time. And
Oh,
yeah,
long
he's in the spirit
distance.
industry. Yeah, so the spirits market in Charlotte just could not compete with Atlanta. So um,
Gotcha.
I was the one that had to move. But it's okay. It's growing. I've been here 3 years, so it's growing on me.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So you're newlyweds too.
Yes, yes. Thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you very much. Yeah, going good.
What does he do? Does he work in
Um,
something similar?
s- yeah, so he works for a distributor here in Atlanta, and his particular role is kind of like a liaison between the on-premise businesses here in the city
Mhm.
and the sales reps. So he
Oh.
spent a lot of time before that working in a lot of the nightclubs and things like that. So
Mhm.
he had an extensive relationship network there. So
Mhm.
that skill transferred to the spirits industry because he's able to connect those people and get a lot of things done for them. So
Absolutely. I could see that.
yeah, he enjoys it.
Yeah. Wow. Is that how you two met each other?
No, actually, we both grew up in Charleston. We knew each other growing up.
Oh,
Yeah, and then we reconnected later on as adults about 6 years ago.
oh, that's so romantic.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really cool to end up being with someone from your hometown.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's
So
like
rare.
yeah, because it's like you have like funny jokes that you both get, or
Yes.
you can relate, like growing up eating the same foods and
Yep.
just culture, all of that stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, you're lucky. You're lucky. Nurture that relationship.
Yeah, yeah. So have you ever lived on the East Coast?
Never on the East Coast. You know, my life has taken me to so many places. I've lived in so many places, but my background is just taking me so many places international as opposed to our own country.
Okay.
Um, in the States, I've lived in Arizona, Colorado, now Oregon.
Okay.
So mountain and West Coast.
Yeah. That's one of
Mm.
our goals. We want to eventually live internationally somewhere to have that experience.
Where do you want to go?
So we're torn between somewhere in Europe or the Caribbean.
Ooh.
Yeah, so like DR, Puerto Rico,
Hmm.
or maybe like one of the islands like St. Martin or Barbados, something
Oh
like that.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm.
I think
The
yeah,
sun and the warmth.
I think we'll
I'll
end
come
up
visit
together
you.
there. Yeah. Yeah. So
I just got back from a trip to Italy
nice.
and I had a great time. But Europe in the winter is very different. But
Hmm.
it's great because on the flip side, it's great because it's not crowded. You don't have
Yeah.
the tourists and everybody has more time for you. So I went to so many wineries and they had a lot of time
Oh,
to
good.
answer all of my very nerdy industry questions.
What part of Italy were you in?
I was primarily in the north, so I went to tour French Quarter,
Hmm.
and more of those sparkling production wineries up north. But then I spent a little bit of time in Tuscany. I spent 2 days in Tuscany, just real quick, just to kind of
Mm.
I'd never been before, so I wanted to explore as much of Italy as I could. And then I took one day trip to Sardinia too.
Oh, nice.
I know, so I really crammed it all in there.
Yeah, we're trying to get Q Society. We're trying to get a group together to do hopefully do Vin Italy in April.
Yes,
Verona. I've been to Venice before, but I didn't get a chance to go to Verona or make it to Milan. So hopefully that works out. But I love Italy.
I do too.
Love it.
I love eating too, and the
Mm,
structure of the meals is so bountiful
yeah.
and look, it's you slow down, you really savor the people and the food. It just I loved it.
And see, that's one of the reasons why Europe is one of our ideas for living abroad because of the quality of life and just the slowness
Oh
there.
yeah.
Like that. Like I want to be able to experience that. We went to Paris and London in September, and it was just, just taking the time to just like we move so fast here. We're just like
I
zoom,
know.
zoom, zoom, zoom all the time.
And we're workaholics, all of us, even when we think we're not in comparison, we work way too much.
Yeah, like in Europe, if you even talk about work on your lunch break or whatever, they frown upon that. They're like, no,
Yeah.
this is our me time,
Hmm.
Even the
And we,
children are
oh
like,
yeah. We praise each other for not taking sick days and not taking vacation days. And over there, they're like, oh no,
yeah,
we
yes.
take all the vacation days.
Yeah, working for them is just a means to an end. For us, it's just like it consumes our whole lives. So I said that was one of my goals for 2024 was to have a little bit more of that mindset.
I like it. I
Yeah.
like it. I'm working this year on um, everything I do. I do it well, but I need to stop apologizing, I think. I'm gonna,
Yeah.
yeah,
I've heard that a lot. Like I really have, and take more ownership of your decisions.
mm-hmm,
Have more confidence in your decisions, and because a lot of times we apologize just because we don't want to hurt someone else's feelings, but not necessarily being authentic and true to
right.
ourselves. So that's a
Yep.
good
Yeah.
one.
Well, thanks.
We
Hi,
got
everyone. We were just talking about New Year's resolutions and what we're trying to improve upon in this next year.
Yes.
How many people are we expecting?
So the last time I looked yesterday, we were at about 30.
Awesome.
So yeah. So usually anywhere between 8 and 10, we kind of get, yeah, they're rolling in pretty heavy now.
Great. Hi, everyone. Welcome in. If you are willing, I would love it if you would type in the chat where you are within the wine industry right now. Are you aspiring to be in the industry? Do you currently work in the industry? And if you do, in which role and which part of the country are you in? That gives me an idea of where we all are with background knowledge. Wine drinker. I love it. Welcome. Once you start with that WSET 1, you realize just how much there is to learn and explore in the wine world, and you get sucked right in. I'm really excited for the beginning of your journey. Winemakers, e-commerce, really big these last couple years. COVID's shifted so much. Yeah, W set. New to the industry, welcome. Super wine drinker. Excellent. If you are just now logging in, I've invited everyone to pop in the chat and share with me where you are within the wine industry. And if you are currently in the wine industry, what do you do?
So April, I will let you get started whenever you're
Okay,
ready.
that sounds great. I'm just going to close this real quick so I can focus on all of you. Well, welcome everyone. My name is April Abate. I am in Portland, Oregon, and I represent Brooks Wines in the heart of Willamette Valley in Amity, Oregon. I'm going to share with you today a bit about Brooks Wine, of course, because I'm here representing them. But I'm also going to then shift my presentation to more information about biodynamics. I'll focus today on farming, but I have lots of information too about biodynamic wine production. So if you have questions, I have time for you, so that's not a problem. If we want to stay later, I want to respect everybody's time, but I have plenty of time afterwards if you do want to hang on and ask me a couple more questions about production. Let's see here. Little housekeeping so that you know what it is that I'm planning on. Um, I have trouble for some reason keeping an eye on the chat box when I'm presenting. So if you do have questions for me today, by all means, just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask them. It doesn't throw me off, doesn't bother me at all. So you're welcome to do that. I have plenty to share. I love talking. I could talk all day, but I love to answer questions and engage in conversations. So you're welcome to participate in that way with me. Let's see, something else I wanted to share with you is really just my background. So we have a lot of wine drinkers on the call today that are starting to dabble in the world of WSET and wine knowledge. And that's exactly how I got started. My joke is, it's true, but I ended up in the wine world because I was a public school teacher for 10 years, and teachers drink a lot of wine. And I found that I would sit down to grade a stack of papers with a bottle of Barolo. And I started to get curious about the difference between Barbaresco and Barolo and Brunello. What are all these things? And signed up for my first wine class, and I fell in love with it. So I started taking more classes. I earned my executive certified sommelier certificate through the International Wine and Spirits Guild. Then I signed up for my certified specialist of wine certificate through the Society of Wine Educators. And all of that was before I stopped teaching. So when I did close that chapter, it was a really natural progression for me to move into the wine industry. So I've been with Brooks for 5 years, over 5 years, about 5.5 now, and still learning and teaching at the same time. So I was able to fuse my passion with my profession. And here we are. Okay, so let's dig in. I want to start with the story of Brooks. Some of you might know us, some of you might not. This is our founder, Jimmy Brooks. Jimmy started Brooks Wine in 1998. Last year, we just celebrated our 25th anniversary. Jimmy was the head winemaker at another winery, when he started the Brooks label. In very Oregon fashion, that winery let him start making Brooks wine on the side using their equipment. Very collaborative out here. But because it was a side project, Jimmy was making handshake agreements with farmers to buy their grapes for his side gig. That worked fine. He did that for 6 years. But then, year six, 2 weeks before harvest, 2 months after this picture was taken, Jimmy was found in his kitchen. He had had an aortic aneurysm and died. He was 38 years old. And that day, 8-year-old Pascal, his son in this picture, inherited the winery and became the youngest winery owner in the world. So that's a lot for a little kid to handle. And what it also did for us was on the farmer side, 2 weeks before harvest, we had all of these farmers who had nothing contractual on paper with their livelihoods swaying in the balance 2 weeks before harvest. So we had a lot of emotions going on top of grieving a friend. Jimmy's sister, Janie Brooks, she got the phone call about her brother's death. She lives in California, hopped on a plane, came up to Oregon, and when she got to Jimmy's house, there were a bunch of people outside waiting for her. Turns out they were winemakers from Oregon, and they wanted her to know how much they loved Jimmy. And they wanted to figure out a way to make this work so that Pascal's inheritance would be protected. So 12 winemakers worked with Janie and her husband to figure out a way to take care of the farmers. So financially, they were taken care of. The 12 winemakers, they took the grapes back to their wineries, fermented and bottled our wine for us, and it gave Janie enough time to figure out the wine industry. All she knew about wine was that she liked to drink it, like a bunch of us on the call today. So a year later, we were up and running. That's Janie Brooks Hoyk in the center. She's still the managing director of Brooks Wine. She volunteers her time to do so. She does not take a paycheck all these 20 plus years that she's been doing it. On the left is Pascal Brooks. He's still the sole owner of Brooks Wine. He's 27, extremely humble. You would never know that he owns a winery. He's very well read. He's a published writer, and he absolutely adores nature. He's living in France right now, and he takes care of a huge oak grove. So when he does come back to the States and to the winery, I don't think he'll be in production. I think he's going to be managing the vineyard. And then on the other side, we have Chris Williams. Chris is our head winemaker, which was a perfect fit for us because Chris was Jimmy's assistant winemaker. So he knew exactly what Jimmy liked, what Jimmy didn't like, and we've been able to stay true to Jimmy the whole time. So the reason that I like to start with the story is because we're very mindful that we wouldn't be here without the support of our community and then our extended community, those of you on the call. And that's why I like to start with a thank you. Letting me into your homes tonight, hearing the story. The next time you see Brooks, I'm sure the story will pop up in your head and you might share it with somebody else. And that's how we keep thriving. So when I say thank you, now you know why I mean it. So thank you for letting me be with you tonight. That's who we were. That's where we came from. And this is who we are today. It's going to transition us into our conversation for tonight. Brooks is a certified B Corporation. B corporations, there are just about 800 of them around the world now. Highest concentration is in Oregon. B corporations are audited very extensively every 3 years to make sure that they're putting people ahead of profit. So trying to do business better, a little bit better every year. We're also a member of 1% for the Planet, which means that we donate 1% of our revenue to a nonprofit that focuses on environmental wellness. So I said revenue, not net margin. So this is upfront sales, 1% goes straight to one of those nonprofits. We work with Kiss the Ground, which is based in LA. They study and teach about regenerative agriculture, which fits very well with my next commitment. We are Demeter certified biodynamic, which is why you're all here today. So we are certified in the vineyard, which is what I'll focus on today. but we're also certified in the production side of the winery, which is rare to have both the agricultural side and the manufacturing side certified. We're also a member of Ecology, which is all about funding climate change projects all over the world. So what we focus on with Ecology is tree planting. We've been with them for about 2 years now. And with our donations, we've planted over 70,000 trees all around the world. So when you sip on Brooks wine, sip confidently because you're making the world just a little bit better. And last, we're now officially a carbon neutral company thanks to Earth First e-commerce. Our website is now carbon neutral. That was the last piece of the puzzle. So if you take a look at Brooks Wine, you'll notice there's a lot of white space in the background of our pictures, and we have limited pictures. So that's less to upload, less to go in the cloud, less energy to run the cloud, and therefore helping with that final step of our carbon usage. Okay, let's get to the good stuff. We're going to start talking about biodynamics now. This is a picture of Brooks Estate. We are small. We're only 18 acres under vine. This is taken in the middle of the 18 acres. We're at about 750 feet in elevation. We go down to about 650-ish feet. We're on volcanic soil. When you think about Willamette Valley, you tend to think about volcanic soil as Jory soil, which we have plenty of. But in our community here, we don't have the iron content that Jory has. So our soil is not red. Our soil is brown, and it's predominantly Nikaya. That's the type that it's called. Still excellent for drainage. And the Pinot Noir that grows on our property is going to still produce incredible red fruit characteristics. So cherries, of course, but you also start to get a lot of pomegranate and strawberry, raspberry, those big red fruits, red juicy fruits. Let's see. Our view is gorgeous. We have a 180-degree view of the Cascade Range overlooking Willamette Valley. You can see a blanket of fog covering all the other farms and agricultural plots right beneath us. So we have this beautiful view every morning and every evening as the sun sets and rises. All right, we're going to start talking about biodynamics. And as we do, I want you to keep in mind two different ways to look at this. Some of the principles and the practices within biodynamics can be controversial, can be complicated, might make you raise your eyebrows. So I want you to think of it in two different ways. And the best way to get your mind set up for that is to think about yoga. Sometimes people practice yoga because it's a spiritual experience for them. It's a way to connect them to something that's bigger in the universe. Other times people practice yoga because they think it's an efficient way to maintain their bodies, to take care of their mental wellness. I want you to think of biodynamics the same way. Some people look at biodynamics as a way to connect the land with the stars and the moon, the universe above. How are we all connected? You'll see that spiritualistic theme throughout a lot of the things that I talk about. But if that's too much for you, I welcome you to look at the other side. A lot of people practice biodynamics because they think it's just a really efficient way to grow beautiful fruit. It's a good way to look at low intervention farming practices, low intervention winemaking, being more aware of the natural processes and being more responsive to what you are personally observing with your crops, rather than trying to expect the same thing and do what the neighbor's farm is doing might not work for your farm. So it's just being more aware and accountable for what's going on around you. All right, so like I said, today I'm going to focus on biodynamic farming, but if you have specific questions about production, I'm happy to answer those too. Biodynamic farming, the goal is to be a closed, self-sustaining system. So without support from the outside, can you nourish yourself without any of that extra support? That's the goal. And if you do it well, biodiversity is going to be top of mind. You want to make sure that you're keeping manufactured chemicals away from your property so that the natural biodiversity can thrive. And if you're doing that, then you're going to have lots of rich life both below and above the soil. You want there to be microbial activity. You want there to be really rich systems of fungi. You want the above grounds, you want the insects, the birds, the lizards, the frogs, the snakes, you have it. Everything else is working very, very symbiotically together to produce a really healthy ecosystem. And for the farms and the vineyards, the best way to do this is to generate your very own fertility without any of that outside help. And to do that, there's 4 different steps. Cover crops, crop rotations, animals, and composting, which is my favorite. So cover crops. When we're working with cover crops in the vineyards, that means that we're planting crops in the rows of each of the vineyards, so in between each of the rows. So you're not going to have wasted space. And what the cover crops accomplish are 2 things: increased biodiversity, and then also adding nutrients to the soil. So with the biodiversity, when you have a cover crop planted in between your rows, you're going to have a plant that has a very complex root system that's keeping your soil intact. So this is also going to create a lot of, oh gosh, billions of microbes and microbial life systems in the soil. It's going to encourage fungus that I mentioned before to create really deep, intricate systems within that soil as well. So that life that's teeming in the soil because of that plant that's held together with those root systems is just going to encourage even more activity, more nourishment, and the nutrients within that soil to effectively go into those plants, both the cover crop and the vines on either side. And I mentioned here that this is opposed to tilling. Brooks is a no-till vineyard. Tilling will break up the soil, and the problem with tilling, the primary problem with tilling, is because it's breaking up the soil, it's breaking up the root systems of anything that was in the soil, which means that you're sacrificing some of that topsoil to possible erosion, whether it's water erosion or wind erosion. So when that topsoil goes away, that nutrient dense layer is oftentimes sacrificed. So we avoid tilling. Even when our cover crops are dead, you can till those and put those back into the soil if you wish to, but we don't. We just mow them down and then let the natural composting do its thing. The other side to cover crops is adding nutrients. With this one, it's a lot like normal gardening. If you have soil that is nitrogen deficient, you're going to plant a nitrogen fixing crop in between your rows. That's going to add nutrients back to your soil. Vice versa, if you have a nutrient, you have too much nitrogen in your soil, you're gonna put nitrogen leaching plants in the soil. So going back to that awareness part, your plot of land compared to your neighbor's plot of land, you're going to need different nutrients. You're going to need to respond differently to support the natural system and the natural life. So being more aware, being more supportive, don't try to control everything, just become more helpful. I mentioned here that this is opposed to weed killers and chemical sprays. So when I think of chemicals and weed killers, I think of Roundup. We all hear a lot about Roundup. Um, Roundup is very effective at killing weeds. The problem with that is it kills everything. So it's going to kill not only the weeds that you don't want, it's going to also kill the microbial life within the soil. If there's a gust of wind, it's going to harm your vines, which is the whole point of what we're there to do, is to support those vines. So it just becomes very problematic. And in biodynamics, we want to make sure that we're avoiding that at all costs. Crop rotations. With a vineyard, it's difficult to do crop rotations because you don't move the vines. You want those to stay in place for decades to come. So with vineyards also being a monoculture, you're not going to have an opportunity for crop rotations with the vines. So instead, you're going to approach crop rotations with the cover crops. So this picture is a great example. There are 2 cover crops used in this vineyard, and they've alternated which ones they plant in every other row. And when those cover crops have reached the end of their life cycle, they will repeat that system, but with 2 different types of cover crops. So adding nutrients, taking out the nutrients of the soil that are too plentiful, adjusting it. You might even repeat with the same cover crops, just becoming more aware of what your particular soil needs at each particular phase of the year. Integrating animals. With biodynamics, the optimal animals to use would include sheep, goats, ducks, geese, anything that can help eat excess plants around the vineyard, anything that can help eat pests that are in the vineyard, but not eat the fruit. They can't reach the fruit. Those are going to be the optimal animals to have on your property. With Brooks Estate, I said we're only 18 acres under vine. We're too small to support animal life of that type and still give those animals quality life. So instead, we raise chickens and we also keep honeybees. The vineyards don't need bees, they don't need pollinators. The vines are hermaphroditic and they'll produce fruit without a pollinator. But our garden is also biodynamic and we need a lot of help with pollinators in the garden. But even bigger, not just looking at our closed unit, but our community around us, Willamette Valley is very robust with agriculture. Our neighbors grow peaches, apples, plums, hazelnuts, and those all need pollinators for sure. So we're happy to contribute to the community. And then we have composting, which is my favorite, I said. So with composting, we have a really complex and very bountiful composting system at Brooks. We definitely, first and foremost, focus on Brooks Estate grape skins and the seeds, the pips. So after those are pressed from our Pinot Noir production, those will go straight into the compost. But we're only 18 acres, which means that we also work with other wineries up and down Willamette Valley, or not wineries, I'm sorry, other vineyards up and down Willamette Valley. About 30 on average. They're not all certified the same way that we are, but they all farm the same way that we do. So we're looking to support like-minded growers within our community. The skins and the seeds from those vineyards are kept separate and they do not go into our compost. And the reason for that is each of these individual vineyards have very specific micro systems and environments, which means that they're also going to have very specific yeast types that did not originate at Brooks Estate and they don't belong at Brooks Estate. So we are not interested in introducing other outside components to our estate. So instead, the farmers, the growers from those vineyards, they'll drive up to Brooks Estate and they'll collect their skins and seeds left over from the fermentation and pressing process, and they'll take them back to their estate, put those in their vineyards. So everything's it's returning back to home, essentially. We also have a very robust food program at Brooks. Most of it comes from our garden, but we also supplement with local growers, local farmers. But anything that is often, put in the trash, food waste, we'll keep that. So when our kitchen is preparing a salad, the bottoms of the salad of the lettuce leaves, they'll keep those. Carrot shavings, for example, eggshells from our eggs, our chickens, all of that will go back into the compost as well. There's a gentleman's farm across the street, raises a couple cattle. All of that manure goes into our compost. Our chickens, of course, they poop quite a bit. We keep their manure, it goes into our compost. Plant matter from the garden, and my favorite, the biodynamic preps, which is short for preparations. This is where I might lose some of you. So if you're ready to hear some of the controversy, here we go. Biodynamic preps. One of the biggest parts of applications, what you're going to be putting on the farm, on the vines, are going to be the preparations, the preps. There are 9 preps altogether. The first 2 are required every year. The other 7 you apply as your vineyard, as your farm needs it. So being more aware and appropriately responsive. So the first 2, the mandatory 2, one, they're all named, oh, by the way, sorry, they're all named 500, 501, 502. So if someone says prep 500, they're talking about the first in the line of 9. So prep 500 is manure from cows, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. You're going to take a cow horn, preferably from a lactating bovine. I still don't know the answer to why it has to be a lactating cow, but you're going to pack it through with the manure, bury this under the ground in the fall, and then dig it back up again in the spring, empty out the manure, and spray that throughout the vineyard. The idea behind that is that the nutrient-dense manure is going to encourage all the microbial activity in your soil to start to move into that cow horn, take the nutrients out to make the surrounding area stronger, but start to bring their systems into that manure, into the cow horn. So when you unbury it and you dump it out and spray it throughout the vineyard, not only are you connecting this part of the estate with the vineyard part of the estate, you're also encouraging all that microbial activity to spread throughout and nourish the soil within the vineyard, that monoculture. So it needs that extra help. So that's the idea behind it. So people look at it and they think, oh, it's this very spiritual connection to the stars. It looks a little bit ominous, looks like a ritual. But then you look at it on the other side, that farming side, and it makes sense. The processes, they're there for a reason. Prep 501 is my favorite. Prep 501 is the silica spray. So ground up quartz is sprayed on the canopy, the leaves. It helps with photosynthesis so that light is reflected and the plant can really efficiently grow, and also it adjusts the pH a little bit. Oh, and also the silica, it helps protect from fungus growth on the leaves and pests that might be harmful to the leaves. Prep 502 is yarrow. Yarrow helps with the immunity. I also have my cheat sheet here because I can't keep the rest of these straight, so forgive me for that. But the yarrow blossoms are also used to help with mobilizing the sulfur and the potassium within the soil, so the plant can utilize those well. Prep 503 is chamomile, just like the chamomile tea that we all take to soothe our tummies and help us go to sleep. Same exact herb. The chamomile is used in metabolizing calcium and assisting with the usage of nitrogen. So when we look at, I start to go through these, and stinging nettle is also a tea. Oftentimes people make a tea out of nettle. So there are reasons that we as humans will take these herbal teas in to assist with our wellness. The same thing, the same idea is applying to the plants. They have a effect on the not molecular, but the systems within the plants, just as they have effects on our systems in our human bodies, just slightly different effects. With the stinging nettle, that's 503, PEP 503, it helps with nitrogen and iron usage. PEP 505 is oak bark that's been ground up. And with the oak bark, it helps with the pH adjustments of the soil, but it also helps with protecting from diseases. It helps with calcium usage within the vines, or other plants too, but for us with the vines. Dandelions, dandelion tea. That's something that humans enjoy as well. But for biodynamic farming, Prep 506 is the dandelions. It helps with hydrogen production and usage. Valerian is Prep 507. Valerian helps with phosphorus in the soil, mobilizing that so it can be efficiently absorbed by the vines, which is also really important too with valerian. It's often put on the very top of the compost heap before it's what's the word I'm looking for? Before it's sprayed or shovel distributed within the vineyard. But the reason for that is the valerian helps to create this really warm blanket or barrier, I suppose, for the rest of the compost pile. So it helps protect all of the other activities that are going on within that compost pile with warmth. And then the last prep is Prep 508, which is horsetail. And the horsetail helps with preventing fungal diseases on the vine. So all of these items, all organic, all natural, they all serve their individual purposes, but they also serve a very connected, common goal in supporting that plant life within the garden. Cow manure, the silica, those are sprayed on the roots and the leaves. Prep 502 through 507, those are all added to the compost pile directly and then distributed within the vineyard. Prep 508, the horsetail, the last one that helps with the fungal disease, that's also going to be a spray. So a little bit different application for a couple of them. This is where I told you it looks very ritualistic. This is a picture of us a couple years ago with our cow horns that are packed with manure. So there's quite a few of them. We have 18 acres. So we have this many for 18 acres. Imagine a vineyard that's bigger. They're going to have quite a few more. And we're getting ready to bury them in the fall. And we dig them back up again in the spring. So we do have to count too to make sure we dig them all back up. We have them all. All right, here's another one where I might lose a couple of you, but stay with me. With biodynamics, because we are also looking at our connection between the land and the stars, the land and the moon, the days of the week are essentially divided into 4 different types of days: flower days, fruit days, root days, and leaf days. And that's according to the lunar cycles. So when the moon is waxing or waning, it's going to have different effects on the plant life here on Earth. And when I first heard this, my background is in microbiology and chemistry. So when I first heard this, I thought, okay, sure. I rolled my eyes, raised my eyebrows. I was very skeptical. But the way my science brain looks at this is to think about the tides on the shores of our beaches. I know, speaking for myself, I understand the way that the tides are affected by the gravitational pull of the moon in different phases of its cycles. That makes sense to me. The idea here is that that same effect is happening within the vines, within the plants. So in different phases of the moon cycle, the water, the nutrients, the energy in the vine is being pulled up or being pushed down. So if all of the energy, the water, the nutrients are being pushed down in the roots on a root day, I'm not going to do anything with the soil. I'm not going to do anything with the roots. The bottom part of the plant needs to be left untouched. Instead, on that day, I might trim the canopy. I might do a little pruning. Vice versa, if it's a fruit day, that's the best day to harvest your fruit. Your fruit's going to be the most expressive, fragrant, floral. It's going to be the most robust in all the characteristics that you're looking for to make a really expressive wine. And then on the flip side, if we have a leaf day, all the water, the nutrients, the energy are up at the top of the plant, the canopy where the fruit is. You do not want to harvest on that day because there's a higher chance that your fruit will be waterlogged, which is going to diminish all of those beautiful characteristics that you're looking for in the fruit and, of course, in the wine. So that's the best way to explain that. Here we go. Okay, here's the question that we get asked the most often. Okay, great. I understand biodynamics now. I have a little bit of knowledge, but why? Why do you bother? What's the point? And to explain why, I have a cute little story to share with you about a deer. The reason that we work with biodynamic principles and practices is simply because we think it makes our fruit taste better. We think it tastes more pure, more expressive, and I have proof. For years and years and years, Brooks has been farmed biodynamically since right before Jimmy passed away, so 2004, so about 20 years now. And we have, for years and years, had a deer problem. Deer love to spend time in our vineyards. They'll eat the little twirly tendrils on our vines. They start to eat our fruit once it's ripe enough. But because we're biodynamic, also, we don't spray anything to keep them out. So we just have this problem we need to deal with. But right next to us, no fence separating our properties at all, is Crannell Vineyards. Crannell, Mr. Crannell, lovely man, he does not have a deer problem. So we started asking around, what could it be? What could it be? And they all said the same thing, all the experts in the community. It's how you're farming. Go into your vineyard, pull one of those little tendrils off of your vines and taste it. And then go next door and pull a tendril off of Crannell's vines and taste it. We did it, and sure enough, our little tendrils were sweeter. But then, about 4 years ago, Mr. Crannell came up to us, 81-year-old farmer, and he said, "What's this biodynamic stuff all about?" We said, "It's, you spray something different, Crannell. That's it." So we started teaching him about it. And now he's farming biodynamically. He's now 100% biodynamic in his vineyard as well. And now Mr. Crannell has a deer problem. So you can't fool nature. They find the good stuff. And we're happy to report that we've got the good stuff. But don't take my word for it. Other people have taken notice as well. We farm this way because we think it produces excellent fruit. And to have excellent fruit means you have excellent wine, especially when you're producing wine biodynamically, which means very low intervention. We're not adding anything into our wines. We're not stripping anything out. You have to have quality fruit to end up with quality wine. We do it because we think it's the right thing to do. But the world started taking notice. So in 2019, we were named as one of the top 100 wineries in the world by Wine and Spirits. This is a blind award, a blind competition. When the judges are tasting the wine, they don't know who produced it. They do know the varietal. They know where the varietal was grown, but they don't know the producer. So it's a really big deal. It's a big honor. In 2019, I don't have the stats for other years, but in 2019, there were 32 of those 100 wineries in the United States. 19 of those wineries were in Willamette Valley, and I believe 6 of them were within our little micro sub-AVA, Eola Amity Hills. So just a great testament to the beautiful wine that's being produced in our community. So if you're out in our area, look me up and come see me. I'm happy to send you to other places too. Then they thought we did a pretty good job in 2021. So we were again put on the list for a top 100 winery in the world. And then again last year. So 3 times, one of the top 100 wineries in the world in a blind competition. So a pretty big deal for us, doing things what we think is the right way, and other people are agreeing because the product speaks for itself. And then last year, just a couple months ago actually, James Suckling named our 2021 Rastaban Pinot Noir a 98-point wine. Rastaban is 100% Brooks Estate fruit, which means it is 100% biodynamic. There's a lot that I could share with you about Rastaban, the name, the clones. I won't spend time with that today, but I think this is a great testament to how a lot of people get confused about the quality of biodynamic wine. They assume it's going to be really musty and earthy, and it can be, but there are so many producers applying the practices in different ways. Our way is always intended to be respectful of the earth, to be respectful of the fruit, and to elevate that fruit's truest, most boldest expressions. So we have plenty of 90-point wines at Brooks, but this was the highest that we've ever received. So it was a really big deal for us. And that's essentially what I have for you. Um, you're welcome to explore our website. We make 60 different wines. That's right, 60. Most of those are single vineyard Pinot Noirs. We're also the top producer of single vineyard Riesling in the entire country. Most of those are single vineyard. Some of them are blends as well. And most of them are dry. So if you've never had a dry Riesling, Brooks is definitely the way to go to experience one. Lots of 90 pointers in there too. I have to, at the bottom, yep, I have a coupon for you, Q Society 10. You're welcome to get a little discount and explore a couple different options with our 60 different labels. If you need any help, you're welcome to email me. I can send you some recommendations too. April@brookswine.com. Of course, we have a wine club with 12, 6, and 4 bottle options too. And if you are in Willamette Valley, come see us. I said we have an incredible food program, and I don't lie about that. Every month it changes so that we can be, again, responsive to what's going on in the garden. So we'll change that every month. We have 3 different flights, red, white, or a mixed to choose from. Wine by the glass, wine by the bottles, and we're open every day except Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. So plenty of activities and classes to enjoy. That's what I've got for you. Do you have any questions?
Hi, April. Oh man, this was good. This was
Glad.
a lot. I feel like you
Did
could
you
have got
learn
another
something?
hour. I feel like you could have got another hour off the diagram alone, right? And as somebody who is anti-earth, anti-nature, don't know the first thing about farming, had to Google what is compost? Oh, fertilizer. Okay.
Right.
Like 101. This was amazing because I came on here and I like to come to things like this because it was my question is why should I care about biodynamic wine? And I'm looking through my cellar and I'm like, I got a whole lot of organic, and I had one bottle that said biodynamic. And
Oh,
I was like, that's weird because I always thought they were interchangeable. And then I come here, you went on a whole psychedelic trip with me,
I
wasn't
told
prepared.
you.
But
I warned you.
I was like, oh boy, I should have smoked something before this. But love it. This was amazing. And yes, thank you. This was good.
Oh, Karen, you're so welcome. I really like too that you kind of validated the way that I approached it too. I feel like it's so easy for us to, and I say this because I was skeptical when I first started working for Brooks and they started talking to me about biodynamics. I thought, what is this? This sounds like a cult like ritual that you're doing in your vineyard. I don't know if I really want to work here anymore. And I started learning more about it and I thought, okay, there is a side to it that might not work for me, but there is another side that makes a lot of sense to me. And that's the way I like to teach about it. I like to portray it. So ultimately, you get to decide which side of the coin resonates for you. But either way, you walk away just understanding it so that when people ask you about it, you can be like, oh, there's more to it. There's a little bit more to it. So I'm glad that you helped validate that for me.
I think it's a phenomenal ecosystem you guys have created. I honestly think it's very revolutionary. I remember when I first got my juicer and when I learned that I can use the compost to plant stuff that just made me feel good about just not wasting things. So it's great that you guys have created a whole entire brand off of that. But also what was very encouraging is just hearing the story of the gentleman prior to his passing and his relationships with the farmers, especially because I don't have a vineyard, but yet I'm a winemaker and I'm constantly trying to build relationships with different farmers. And then just understanding, the climate and things of that sort. When I, first started doing my winemaking in Georgia and how most muscadine grapes grow there and how some French hybrids are surviving depending on the season and things of that sort. So it was just really awesome, not only from a community standpoint and how you guys were able to kind of cultivate those relationships, even, post his passing, but it was really encouraging to know that, hey, he created this entire foundation by way of those relationships, and you guys just took it and continued on with the torch. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Talika.
I have a very general question. So when you're thinking in terms of like vegan wines, organic wines, biodynamic wines, in my head, they all sound like synonyms for each other. So is there a difference? And like, if there is, like, what's the nuance to being, that differentiates something that's a biodynamic wine from just an organic wine versus a vegan wine?
Well, one of the biggest problems that we run into as a biodynamic winery are a lot of wineries that are, and none of you will be new to this, but all the greenwashing. There's so much greenwashing that goes into the marketing of a lot of different producers. And I don't want to say that everybody's doing it, because there are a lot of people that are creating these organic, natural wines in really beautiful, respectful ways, and they're really beautiful wines. But there's so much greenwashing, so it's not surprising to me that it's confusing to everybody. It's confusing to me too. So when you're looking at a producer that's claiming their wine is something, I would encourage you to dig a little deeper, maybe even email them and ask them how is it that a consumer can confirm their claims. So with us, at least, one of the benefits to being Demeter certified biodynamic is that we have this certification that audits us very strictly to confirm that what we say we're doing is what we're doing. So that's one of the best ways to do it, but it's not always, you just need to do the digging, essentially. And then if you're looking at, the categories, organic, USDA organic, if they have that certification, it's great. It's a great place to start. Then there are other levels. So then the next level would probably be biodynamic. Then the next level would be regenerative agriculture. There are all these different tiers that are more and more strict and more precise about what promises that you're doing what you're doing. So becoming more aware of what the regulations, the regulatory bodies of all these certifications require of a producer or a farmer, that's the best way to look at it. So when you're looking at, also, I don't know if there is certification for vegan wine or natural wine. The one that drives me the most crazy is clean wine. There's no certification for that. It means nothing. Sorry, Cameron Diaz, but it doesn't mean anything. So with those, it's really just reaching out to the producer and asking, what is it that you don't do, essentially, that's encouraging this label on your wine or this description of your wine. So with vegan, usually what that means is they're not filtering or fining using animal products. So one of the most popular ways to clarify wine, it's an old style, but it's still used. You have this cloudy wine and you add egg whites to the wine. And within a matter of seconds, all the particles sink to the bottom. They bind with the protein in the egg whites, and it becomes this clear red wine, white wine, doesn't matter. There are YouTube videos you can watch it happen. It's really interesting. But I would imagine you can also do it with charcoal. You can do it with fish bones. There's a word for that product, the fish bones. But I would imagine with the vegan wines, they're just not using that particular step. They could be using another step. Like with us, we use a process called cross-flow filtration, which is a machine that absorbs all those particles out of the wine through different systems of tubes with different size holes. So it's not a product that we're adding to the wine to clarify it. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that was really, really helpful. And I enjoyed like looking at the different elements that make up the whole kind of biodynamic cycle. I mean, 90% of the herbs that you guys use as a part of the cycle are herbs that I use in my hair oil. So in my homemade
Yes.
hair oil.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, I can drink it and I can put it on my head. Okay.
Yeah, and that makes you feel good, right? It makes me feel good. Yeah, so many of those herbs are natural antiseptics, natural anti-inflammatories. They have all these properties that we use on our human body. So
Yeah.
why would they not have, effects on organic matter too?
Yeah. That's cool.
I had a quick question.
Mhm.
I am going to sift through all 60 wines, but for somebody who does
That's
not want
right.
to, what are your go-to starter or whatever? Like,
Yeah. So I love that Rostbon that I showed you. Plus, I think it has just such a cool name and it catches people and it sticks in your mind. But some of the other vineyards that I work with that I absolutely love, Crannell, the one that I just mentioned, with Mr. Crannell Vineyards. Before Mr. Crannell planted his Pinot Noir in the 80s, he had a cherry orchard. So I don't know if it's me just being, poetic and romantic, but whenever I taste Crannell's wine, it just tastes like big, bright red, juicy cherries. So I love Crannell. Um, Sunset Ridge is a great one if you're looking for something that's more bold, blue and black fruit focused as opposed to red fruit focused. And then I also, gosh, we have so many that I love, but those are some really great places to start when you're looking at the Pinots. But if you're at Brooks, do yourself a favor and try one of the Rieslings. One of my favorite dry Rieslings that we have is the Lone Star. That's the name of the vineyard, but the Lone Star Vineyard produces, it's the most expressive Riesling. It is so fragrant, so aromatic, juicy tropical fruit, of course, citrus. You've got that Granny Smith apple from the malic acid. But because it's dry, you have all this fruit, both on the nose and the palate, but without the sugar. So it's so fun when you're looking at Riesling and people say, I don't like sweet wine. They taste this and they're like, whoa, I had no idea that Riesling could even be this. So I would definitely start there. And then if you're looking for something a little bit sweeter, just a little bit, go with the Bois Joli Riesling. It's my favorite year after year. It's like a sweet tart candy.
awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything
So I
else?
had a question about the vineyard itself. So you said the vineyard was open other than like a handful of days. Do you guys accommodate groups, and like how do you need reservations? Like how do you access the vineyard? How best is it to access the vineyard, especially if you want to come as like a group?
Yep. So our tasting room is open all the time. I recommend a reservation. We do take walk-ins, but especially for groups, I highly recommend a reservation. I recommend reservations anyway, because we have a food program. It's a really robust food program, and I think we're one of 7 in the entire community that has it. We're a popular place. So that would be the best way to go about that. But yes, we definitely accommodate groups as well. Just email us in advance to make sure we have a place to put you and staff to serve you. For the vineyard, we do vineyard tours in the summertime. It's only during the summer. But those are by pre-approved or pre-arranged reservations as well. Right now, our vineyard tours are capped at 4 only because we take you on an ATV through the vineyard and we can only fit 4 people in it. But if we're looking at a private event, sometimes we can work with larger groups to make sure that we can walk, on foot through the vineyard and experience, the wine that you're tasting now came from this part of the vineyard. It's really fun to do that. So different things like that we can accommodate too.
Okay, I have another question. Sorry.
Okay.
So if somebody's like watching this and they see and they're like new to this whole industry and they hear that you have a food program, what does that mean? Because I'm like, it's not a restaurant, it's a food program. So what's the difference?
Honestly, the difference is licensing. Because of our size, we will never qualify to have the restaurant permit. So if I use the word restaurant, we can incur fees from the county. That's the difference, essentially. But what it looks like every month, we have a menu of food that's designed to pair with the wine. It has to be it's really important to us as a food program, not a restaurant. At a winery, the wine comes first. So we pick our monthly wines. We have 60 wines, so we don't serve all of them every month. We'll pick the wines that we're serving that month, and then we'll design the menu based on what's growing in the garden. So every month we'll have 5 entrees that change based on the wines and what's growing in the garden. And then we'll also always consistently have a charcuterie tray, a cheese tray, popcorn, olives, nuts, dessert, things like that. Stay there all the time. It's politics. All right, who's going to come out and see me this year? That's right. That's right.
What's funny you say that because I was like, I wonder if do you guys participate in the International Pinot
Oh, yeah.
thing? Okay.
Are you going to be out?
So I always have plans, right?
Sure.
So I reserved a room. I'm probably gonna be solo dolo. I don't know if anybody's gonna, come with me or whatever, but I was gonna actually hit you up about that earlier. But since you mentioned it, I
Yes.
was just like, okay, cool.
Oh, yeah. We have
What is
been.
this event?
It's IPNC, and I think
Yes.
it's in June or July
It's
this
the
year.
last weekend in July.
Okay. It's a great experience. Not only is it excellent for networking, but you learn so much. And if you have the opportunity to add a day to the beginning or the end of your visit, just email me and I'll send you all these recommendations for places that you need to visit and experience. That's another part about Oregon wine country that I really admire. I have no hesitation sending you to places outside of Brooks because they're going to send you back to me too. So if you like one thing and I don't offer it, I know exactly where to send you to find it. And I have no problem sending you there because I'm sending you to people that produce really beautiful wine and they do it well. So just send me an email, tell me what you like. We can talk about it and I can give you some ideas where to go.
I definitely will.
Cool.
Karen, let me know. I'm interested. And April, I want to get some of your recommendations. So.
Oh, I'd love that. Fantastic. There are only 500 wineries in Willamette Valley, so
Right.
Yeah.
Kamiko, where are you?
DMV.
Oh, I do love DC. Oh, we'll connect for sure.
Well, it is the end of the hour, but I have plenty of time if anyone wants to stay on. I'll just end real quick too with just a real quick summary of what it is that we don't do on the production side of biodynamic winemaking. I talked about farming a lot today. Essentially, low intervention winemaking is what helps us with biodynamic certification on the production side. The biggest parts of that are we do not add sugar to our wine. It's a really common practice in colder communities to help the yeast have more food. So you encourage higher alcohol content within the wine and change the body of the wine. We're not doing that. However, the fruit comes into us, we want to represent and respect that fruit. We don't add acid to our wine, very common in warmer communities, so it's becoming more popular in Oregon. Adding citric acid or powdered tartaric acid to the wine to adjust the flavor, the mouthfeel, the texture. Before I stop talking about that, I want to make it very clear wineries that do add acid and do add sugar, it's not a bad thing. It's just different. They do it, we don't do it. They're not bad, we're not bad. There's no bad or good with that. I just want to, it's just different. So essentially, when you're looking at producers, you just learn more about how they make their wine, and you're going to find wines that taste a certain way and feel a certain way for you, and their production style aligns with what you're looking for. So that's all that is when it comes to the additions. But also with sulfites, with biodynamics, sulfites are permitted within wine, but they're at a very low concentration. So for biodynamic wine preparation, you're permitted 100 parts per million, which is going to be quite a bit below the other regulatory quantities as well. Native yeast as well. We're not inoculating with anything else. So whatever's accumulating on the skins of the grapes, that ambient yeast, that's what we're using. Those are the big ones for production. Oh, Kelly, the best way to get a hold of me is my email address, april@brookswine.com. And I'm new to LinkedIn. I'm, a decade behind schedule. So I'd be happy to connect with you on LinkedIn too. I have no social media. I'm a complete weirdo. It's just LinkedIn. I'm a life comparer. It's not healthy for me.
That's not weird. That means you valid, social interactions like outside of the computer.
I'm trying to, be human again. All right. Well, send me any questions you have, email, LinkedIn, if you have them. And I'll let you all get back to your evenings. Thank you for spending some time with me tonight.
Thank you so much, April. We really appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate it too. Thank you. It was a privilege.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.